Thank you. So we are continuing our discussion on the Taittiriya Upanishad. So yesterday we were discussing this interesting dialogue between a young boy and his father. The boy is the student and the father is the shishya. Sorry, the teacher, guru. Varuna and Bhrigu. So frequently this approach in Vedanta is called Bhargavi Vidya, something that was learned by Bhrigu, and Varuna Vidya, a method of meditation taught by the great sage Varuna. So Varuna is not the god mentioned, Deva, Devada. Varuna was the name of a great sage mentioned in many of the ancient Vedic literature. So the question put to the teacher, the guru, was this in Sanskrit: Adhihi Bhagavo Brahma iti. Please teach me the knowledge of Brahman. Please teach me the knowledge of the highest spiritual enlightenment, spiritual realization. That was the question. Now, in answer to this question, the teacher simply tells him tapasa brahma vijnana. In English means you realize Brahman through tapah. So tapah is a Sanskrit word which is very, very important in any kind of human endeavor, not only in spiritual life. When you withdraw your senses from all other objects and when you focus your mind exclusively on one important focus, any kind of concentrated work is called tapah. Now this tapah, as I mentioned, when you apply in the external world, then you make great discoveries. You are hitting hard on the doors of outer nature. And the nature is compelled to open its door and remove the concealing lid, and you get an Einstein or Newton and great discoveries. Okay, now the same tapah, when turned inward, then it reveals our own true nature. And then we begin on a spiritual journey. At the first stage in the spiritual journey, the student thought that this matter, the physical body, and all that is apparent, that is visible, that we connect with, constitutes the whole of reality, nothing beyond the empirical, nothing beyond the today, the present, the visible, the tangible. Now, Varuna, the father, corrected him, you are wrong. Then again he did tapasa brahma vidinhyasa. So again you do tapah. And Bhrigu, of course, you have to admit, you have to give credit to Bhrigu, the student, because he himself felt there is something wrong. This external nature, this matter cannot be the whole of absolute reality, because it is changing every day. The whole cosmos, the whole universe may exist like this for maybe several millions or billions of years. That's all. If you think of the earth or you think of the universe, it depends upon several, let us say, millions or billions of years. That's all. Still, this external universe is within time. And it is within what Vedanta called Maya, the time, space, causality, conundrum. Time and space. That's all. Relative. Because it changes. And again, it doesn't have consciousness. Therefore, Bhrigu thought, well, maybe I am wrong. So he went to his father. And when he declared, annam brahme vijnana, I have realized the absolute reality of Brahman, it is the matter. And then the father didn't say much. Then the boy fell in doubt. And so Varuna asked him, continue your spiritual journey, continue your tapah. And as he went ahead, his next stage in the journey was prano brahmeti vijnana. The vital breath or the prana is Brahman. But prana is also unconscious. Prana by itself is unconscious. So, when the father told him, you continue your spiritual journey, then he fully recognized the truth. You have to go further. Now the point is, there is something else to keep in mind. There is a well-known book, it's called Taittiriya Viveka. It's a small book, 46 verses by Shankaracharya. It is an important text dealing with the seer and the seen. The subject and object, the experiencer and what is experienced, the observer and what is observed. Now, in that book, there is an interesting analysis. The eyes see all these objects. So the eyes, they constitute the subject, the seer, the experiencer, the perceiver, the observer. And the seen objects like this lake, all these things constitute what is being observed, the drishya. The drishya means something which is subjected to recognition or cognition, understanding or observation. And drashta in Sanskrit means the witness, the subject, the seer, the experiencer. Now, compared to the eyes and the visible objects, if you analyze, this Lake Tahoe is drishya. I see the Lake Tahoe. My eyes constitute drashta, the seer. Now going beyond that, without my mind, I cannot see Lake Tahoe. Because my mind and my eyes should come together. They should cooperate. Then only I will be able to see Lake Tahoe and recognize it as Lake Tahoe. I may see without my mind being here. My mind may be somewhere else, still my eyes may be staring at an object. I would be recognizing it. I mean, physical act of seeing can happen, but not the internal act of recognizing. For that, mind and eyes should come together. So, if you analyze the relationship between the eyes and the mind, then the mind is the seer, the witness. Because mind prompts the eyes to see the object. So, mind is the seer, the witness, the subject, and the eyes are the object. Now, without Atman being present in all of us, our mind cannot prompt the eyes or the senses of perception, other senses of perception, to flow into different objects. So it is Atman, something that leaves the body when a person dies. Something that activates the eyes, the senses, the mind and the intellect and all these. There should be somebody or something which is invisible, but certainly that is the grand seer, the only real seer and witness, Atman. So it is this Atman that actually enables the mind to perform the act, the responsibility of mind. So Atman is the only real seer and witness. This is the Taittiriya Viveka approach, and practically the same idea is put forward in a different context using a different set of metaphors in this dialogue. So when Bhrigu said, well, prana, the energy, the vital breath is the Atman, it is the nature of Brahman, then also he felt a doubt because prana is unconscious. Prana cannot decide for itself. So he continued his journey. What does it mean? When we practice certain spiritual disciplines, our understanding of the same idea goes deeper and deeper. Say a highly evolved person, if he reads the Upanishads or Dhammapada or the great teachings like the parables or the Sermon on the Mount, he may read a higher meaning in it. A crude person may not see so deep into the real significance of the great parables or the Gita or the teachings of any worldly teacher. But as we evolve, our understanding, our perception and comprehension of what we read, what we try to understand also goes deeper and deeper. So Bhrigu was actually growing inwardly. That's why he felt a doubt. Prana doesn't seem to be the ultimate answer. So that's why he agreed to continue his tapasya. So then he continued his journey, and at the third stage, Mano Brahmedi Vijnana. Manasso Heva Khalu Imani Bhudani Jayande Manasa Jatani Jivanti Mana Prayanti Abhisamvishanti. The same, that text is the same, identical. So at the first stage, Bhrigu realized matter, the body is the ultimate answer. Everything comes from matter, everything is sustained by matter, everything finally gets dissolved into matter. And then he declared his father corrected him. So Bhrigu continued his inward meditation, and at the second stage, he thought he has hit upon the answer, prana or the vital breath. Well, there also he felt a doubt because it is unconscious. So he continued his spiritual journey. At the third stage, he realized that mind is the ultimate nature of the absolute reality. Now, what is the nature of mind? Vedanta gives a very rational and psychologically very scientific definition of mind. Mind is a kind of sankalpa, vikalpa, antahkarana, vritti, mana. What is mind? So you find mind never remains same. Mind is always changing. Why? Because a continuous stream flow of dissimilar thought currents, not identical thought currents. According to Buddhist hermeneutics, perception happens when the same identical momentary but identical and similar waves continue at the same for a long time, then only perception happens. That is the Buddhist Nayayikas, logicians' argument. Vedantins also take a fraction of this, and Vedantins say it is true. The mind is nothing but a continuous flow of, let's say, stream consciousness, using the language of William James. Continuous flow. So when one thought comes to my mind, then it is possible that next moment another thought may come to my mind. And this continues. So such a mind cannot be the ultimate nature of the reality, because it is changing all the time. It is nothing but a vritti, antahkarana. So we are now going to deal with these two important subjects, mind and, that is mana and vijnana is this text. Mind and intellect. Mind and intellect are defined in Vedanta like this. Mind, as I mentioned, sankalpa, vikalpa, antahkarana, vritti. So when you see an object in front of you, if you are not sure of the nature of the object, it may look like a human being if there is not enough light, or it may look like a pillar. So one sankalpa is a human being, next, or maybe a pillar, another. And like that you goes on. So these thought currents can be divided into equally strong but conflicting thought currents. This is what mind really does all the time. That's how it operates. When you reach the object, then your doubts vanish. You come to a conclusion, it is a pillar or a human being, whatever it is. At that stage, buddhi, what we call intellect, is operating. So intellect is defined as nisyatmika antahkarana vritti. Nischaya means it's something that helps you. An operation of the mental waves, mental thought currents, mental impressions that help you to decide, come to a conclusion as to what an object is. That is vijnana. So, Bhrigu will gradually evolve to the next stage. So, we have to remember, Bhrigu realized mind cannot be, because you suffer pain now and you enjoy happiness next moment. So this goes on changing. External objects frequently drag this mind through the senses of perception. So such a thing cannot be the ultimate reality. So Bhrigu felt a doubt. And finally, what happened, he went ahead and he continued his tapasya, and at the fourth stage, vijnanam, made in vijnana. Vijnanam can be called jivatma or buddhi, both same. According to Vedanta, the all-pervading Atman reflects on our buddhi or mind, and that is called embodied being. So in some contexts, mind and buddhi, mana and buddhi, mind and intellect are used alternatively, because that's a problem with Vedantic hermeneutics. Because Vedanta evolved at a time when the language was not fully developed. The philosophy was highly developed. Unlike what is now. Now language is so highly developed, philosophy is so crude. But that's why you have got many mind-boggling, confusing terms, enough to drive anyone crazy. Now in Vedanta you find the word Atman is sometimes used to signify mind, the senses of perception, and the senses of action, and also Jivatma and also Paramatma. So it is a very interesting aspect of the old Hindu philology. So there was a great commentator who wrote a commentary on Nirukta. Yesterday I mentioned Nirukta, the first attempt at lexicography in the history of language and philology. The work belongs to maybe around 1800 BC, if not earlier. So it was commented upon by a great teacher called Durgacharya. So he says, Sarvesham Shabdanam Dhatu Jatvam Dhatunam Anegarthatvam cha. It's a great statement in this commentary. Now, those who are interested in language, it will be very interesting. He says, every word originates from a root, and every root can have any number of interpretations, any kind of implications, depending upon the context and depending upon the speaker, the writer who uses the word. That is a very prakarana vaividya, pravartuhu vaividyacha, shabdanam anegartatvam. I have to study this, that's where this quotation comes. But these statements are so profound for those who are interested in philology and linguistics. Says, a word can depend upon, its meaning can depend upon the person who uses it and in what context he uses that word. So context and the speaker are important. Like that, the word mana and buddhi, mind and intellect in Sanskrit language, can have any number of interpretations. Just as an additional interesting as I mentioned and so. So here mind means this endless, continuous flow of thought currents is called mind. So Bhrigu felt that cannot be the absolute reality, because it is changing every day, every moment, and also for every person is different. Therefore, there should be somebody else, something else. That should be the absolute reality. And a little beyond mind there is intellect. The intellect is subtle. Well, you will understand the difference between intellect and mind in Vedanta. If I give the well-known imagery from the Upanishad. In the Upanishad, there is a well-known imagery. You are traveling in a chariot, and you are the master, you are sitting, you want to travel. You need a driver, and the driver needs reins with which he controls the horses. And of course, he needs disciplined horses, and there should be a road, a well laid out road. So, here you are the traveler, your intellect is the driver, and the reins with which the driver controls the horses is the mind, and the horses are the senses, the eyes, ears, sense of touch, sense of smell. They take you in whatever direction your mind diverts them, drives them, and it is the driver who should decide in what manner the reins should be used. So the intellect decides in what manner mind should work, operate, in controlling the senses. So Atmanam Radhinam Vidhi Shariram Rathamevaja Buddhim tu Saradhim Vidhi Manam Pragrahamevaja Indriyani Paranyahu Vishyan Steshu Gocharan Atmendriya Mano Yuktam Bhokta Ityahum Manishinaha. So anyway, this is the old verse from the Upanishad. So the point is, intellect of course plays a bigger role, but still intellect is and cannot be the absolute reality, because the intellect is again a part of Jivatma, and Jivatma, the individual soul, leaves this body when we die. And that is the central principle behind the law of reincarnation and the law of karma. So whatever samskaras and impressions we have gathered in this life or previous life are stored up in the mental system. The mental system has got 4 departments. One department contains the accumulated memories and impressions, emotions and feelings and attitudes. And one department functions as the ego, identification. I am the one. And another department is called mind, which I mentioned already, and another department is called buddhi. So there are 4 departments. It's called antahkarana, internal organs, which has got 4 functions or 4 departments. The one system in which memory is stored, another system which identifies with the memory. Well, we can easily say any student of educational psychology will understand. How do you teach a child in a kindergarten or a primary school? You have to teach him a lesson, a new lesson. First, you must try to connect a bridge, establish a bridge between what the student already knows and what he has to learn right now. So from the unknown to the known, this association, what we are doing is, we are actually trying to connect some of the impressions he already has gathered in his mental system, which he can easily recollect. And then we are trying to connect that with something new. So he will naturally learn the connection and he will understand a new lesson. Like that, when we remember certain events, certain associations, certain attitudes, behaviors which cannot be explained in the light of experiences in this life, then we have to assume they come from another source, from another life cycle, another birth, another life cycle. So like that, memories and impressions are stored up in the mental system. That particular department is called chittam. Now, when people die, they take with them a bundle. That bundle can be called as antahkarana, mana, buddhi, chitta, ahamkara. This storehouse of memories, a kind of ego system, and the ability to recollect and identify, it is brought forward to the next life. That's why certain people can easily learn things. Some other people need much more, maybe the same IQ level. Maybe parents are, of course, the same identical background, same bringing up, but taste can be so radically different. The reason is, one person carries with him one bundle of samskaras, and his mind that is coming forward, and mind and buddhi. So this changes from life to life. So such a thing, jivatma vijnana, cannot be the absolute reality. See, it's changing all the time. So when Bhrigu went and told his father, vijnanam brahmedi vijanat, vijnanat imani bhudani jayanti, vijnanena jatani jivanti, vijnanam payenda visamvisanti, tad vijijñāsasva, tad brahma. Again the father told him, you continue your journey. The child could understand because he himself felt the doubt. It is changing all the time. So it cannot be the absolute reality. Now we are coming to the central part of this text. This is the essence of the whole dialogue. At the fifth stage, Bhrigu realized Anando Brahma idi vyajanat. Ananda is Brahman. Now what is the Ananda? That's what we are going to discuss now. Ananda ki eva khalu imani bhudani jayante anandena jatani jivanti anandam prayantyapi samvisanti. This is the end of this dialogue. Now what is Ananda? Ananda, literal translation may be bliss, but we should understand what gives us this bliss is Ananda. What is bliss? Bliss is not enjoyment. It is not even contentment. It is not satisfaction. When suppose we have left our home, wandered about, lived in 5-star hotels, in luxurious surroundings, but when you return home, when you come back to your own home, then you really feel at home. So what we call as our own, what we consider as our own, our natural true state, that is bliss or Ananda. So Ananda should not be mistaken to be Anandamaya Kosha, which will be those who are familiar with the text may remember there is Pancha Kosha, Vichakshana Atma. There is a long discussion. We are not discussing Anandamaya Kosha here. Here Ananda means our true nature. So how do you define bliss? Well, I can give the most articulate and simplest possible definition of bliss is. One is coming home. Secondly, what old men normally complain about? They are not getting enough sleep. Now they are not complaining they are not getting dreams. They are not complaining they don't have waking states. But their complaining is they are not getting sushupti or deep sleep or dreamless sleep. So every human being, according to Vedanta, feels and experiences this bliss every day during deep sleep. Without deep sleep, you cannot have real rest. You will go crazy, your health will break down. Your health will not suffer if you don't have dreams. But in dreamless deep sleep, we actually come back to our home. And that's why we feel fully rested. And that restfulness is not the result of any work, any effort, any endeavor. If you get anything as a result of your work or endeavor, it cannot give you bliss. It can give satisfaction, contentment, but not bliss. Bliss is a state which is far beyond whatever we could mean, we may imply by the word contentment or satisfaction. So that's what we are going to discuss now. So this Ananda is the state in which we experience total restfulness. Another state in which we may experience this bliss is samadhi, or what we call nirvana in Buddhist tradition. But there is a great difference. Those who experience this bliss through deep sleep without any effort every day, they may not be benefited by this experience of transcendental restfulness. That's because we are not making ourselves ready for this experience. What we get may not be ours. Only what we earn can be ours. Of what we get, that we deserve is what we earn, and that alone can really benefit us. Now, if you experience the same restfulness through samadhi, then you become a different person. In fact, in Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a continuous succession of sentences, Vyakrova, Sinkhova, all these animals also go to Susuti, but they don't become saints. But those who experience samadhi, they are turned into saints. But the samadhi is possible only when we prepare ourselves and our mind to experience it. Now, how do we prepare? So Vedanta lays down 7 disciplines for making ourselves ready for this experience of Ananda. This experience is characterized by the total absence of duality, of plurality. That's why, we come to know of the restfulness we enjoyed only when we come out of deep sleep. When we are in deep sleep, we are not aware of the wonderful restfulness we experience in deep sleep. So, that's because the mind is the only instrument with which we experience duality gets submerged. It becomes non-functional. So we don't experience any duality. And another interesting thing is, we actually feel perfect peace and happiness only when we are alone with ourselves. When there is somebody else or something else, then we always feel friction. So in the highest state of Advaita Anubhuti, you experience yourself to be one with the entire humanity, with the whole creation. That's why Shankaracharya, when his commentary in the Mandukya verse, Susiddhanta Vyavasthasu Dvaitino Nischidadadam Parasparam Viruddhyante Taihi Ayam Na Viruddhyate. This is an interesting verse. So explain this, because without quoting this verse, we cannot really explain this. So the meaning is this: different philosophers who are distinct, who disagree with Advaita, non-duality, they fight among themselves. Yes. But Advaitics have not quarrel with anyone. Because in Advaitic experience, what is happening is, you are experiencing your non-distinction, your unity and oneness with the whole creation. So there is nobody else other than yourself. So it has an ethical foundation. Shankaracharya says, an Advaitin cannot hurt another person because he will be hurting himself. He cannot do harm to another person because he will be doing harm to himself. So this sort of total and complete unity and oneness of the whole creation is an important characteristic of this samadhi experience, Ananda experience. That's why it is Ananda. It is not satisfaction. When you are satisfied, another person may be dissatisfied. Mm-hmm. When you are contented, that contentment may be yours only. But when you are in a state of bliss, actually it is a kind of undivided, non-dual feeling of inner fulfillment, inner completeness. So this is, again I say, this is because there is no duality. But the difference between Deep sleep or sushupti and samadhi is, in deep sleep, you don't experience duality or plurality, not because they do not exist, but because your instrument with which you experience plurality is not working, not operating. Because in samadhi, you transcend duality. You go beyond duality. You go far beyond it. So there's a great difference between transcending duality, plurality, and non-experiencing duality. So this Ananda state, when you have this, when you don't need anyone to explain it to you, and you don't feel the need to make a wide proclamation about it. So that's why Shankaracharya says, Saisha Bhargavi Bhriguna Vidita Varunena Prokta Varuni Vidya Parame Vyoman Hridayakasha Kukayam Parame Anande Advaide Pradisthita Parisamapta. So the spiritual journey of Bhrigu comes to an end when he experienced this oneness, this unique feeling of blissfulness, when this feeling of total identification with the whole creation. So this is the end of this dialogue. Now in certain texts there are other descriptions, for example, referring to this other context, Yato vacho nivartande aprapi manasa saha anandam brahmano vidvana vivedi kudaschaneti. This experience is yato vacho nivartande aprapi manasa saha. The meaning is this: you reach this experience, but mind and words, they try to explain, they try to reach this experience, they come back empty-handed because mind cannot explain, words cannot explain. It's a very beautiful metaphor. Mind and words, they return. So they went in search of this experience. And they thought they can write a big volume on this experience, or make a big mighty talk on this subject. They returned and they are silent because there is nothing you can say or do about it. It's kind of deep internal experience. And the language that experience is silence. So, Veda Samhita has many interesting statements about this. So, Antaya Bahuvadinam Anantaya Mukam. The language of the infinite is silence. You may ask this question: what's the use of all this in this 21st century for people living in this Silicon Valley? What is the use of this kind of Advaita, non-duality? Well, I think maybe that spiritual ideal is more relevant and has got much more, I would say, utilitarian value today than 6,000, 7,000 years back when it was taught. Now, this experience is part of the Advaita tradition. Advaita tells you, on the one hand, there is this higher experience of Ananda, where you reach a stage of non-dual mystical experience of total blissfulness. Now, how do you relate that experience with the world of experiences, everyday empirical life and experiences, these computations and complexities of modern life? One method to apply this principle, this Advaita philosophy in modern times is, Advaita tells you this is the only reality, but it doesn't say this world of everyday life and struggles and problems, that world is totally unreal. It doesn't say that. What it says is, it is only empirical part of the changing phenomenal world. It is part of the mind and intellect. And and matter and vital breath. So, annam, pranam, mana and vijnana. So again, these four early levels of stages of experiences that are narrated here. First, Bhrigu thought this world of matter is the only reality. And then he thought, next stage, the energy, the vital breath, which is more subtle, is the only thing to be bothered about. Then he thought mind. And finally, he thought intellect, or these life cycles, jiva, individuals, jiva. Now, these constitute what we live in, what we experience every day in our empirical life. Vedanta doesn't say it is unreal or that it should be discarded. What Vedanta says is, you should keep in mind that this is only a changing reality. So it's called, in the Vedantic language, it's called vyavaharika satta. Practical, everyday, common sense experience. Now, even in the midst of our ordinary life experiences, if we can look upon these phenomena that we experience every day, is part of the changing phenomena, then actually a huge burden will be taken off our shoulders. Very often we look upon this world as the only reality. We stop where Bhrigu stopped, at the first stage itself. That's the main problem. Because Bhrigu had the wisdom to understand that this matter changes every day, every moment, and the matter is devoid of consciousness. It is in the hands of somebody else. It borrows its existence from some other source. So it cannot be the absolute reality. That he realized. But frequently what happens is, we may think this matter or maybe mind to be the only realities. Those who live at the lowest level of matter, the physical level, for them the smallest problem at the physical level can be big dilemma, a disaster. But those who can lift themselves above the level of body and matter and ascend to the level of mind, maybe those scientists, thinkers, a man like Stephen Hawking, suppose he thought body is the only thing, he won't be able to live in the world. He was a great man because he could look upon his own body as something not so very important. So, but then if you stop at the mental level, then a pain and an experience of pain and pleasure, profit and loss, good and bad, can have a devastating impact on our life. So, the Upanishad tells you should ascend even beyond mind. But even if you go beyond the mind, then also you may eventually come to the conclusion this human life is nothing but a continuous cycle of birth, life, death and rebirth. A continuing cycle of, like a wheel that is rotating without an end. And the Buddha says in his Vritti 12-link chain, this wheel goes on rotating. So long as we have desire means so long as we interpret ourselves at the mental level or at the physical material level, then this life cycle will continue. There is no way to come out. When we realize that there is a transcendental reality behind everything, there is a transcendental possibility, the transcendental dimension to my personality that goes beyond matter, beyond body, mind, intellect, then in the midst of all these struggles and problems, we can dismiss all this. Well, it's part of the changing phenomenon. So even if a problem is no more a problem when you recognize that problem as part of a changing phenomenon. Very often we look upon a problem as a permanent problem that is not going to end. In fact, that's an important thing to remember. We may know intellectually that wealth is likely to come and go. But still when the stock markets collapse, for a moment that fact is forgotten. So what happens? For a minute we imagine wrongly that wealth is expected, meant to be there all the time. Health is meant to be there all the time. Life should mean a successive, continuous, unbroken flow of enjoyment and happiness. We know it is impossible. Nobody in the world had that kind of experience. Now I was talking, some of you talk about ancient times, Jesus Christ. Would anyone among you like to exchange your life with Jesus Christ? Not a very pleasant experience. Or Buddha even, not a very pleasant way of living the world for him. So, the difference is, these great spiritual teachers had this ability to dismiss the empirical as empirical, to dismiss the everyday experiences as part of the changing phenomena, and focus on something that is transcendental. As I mentioned, there are 7 disciplines for us to reach this level, which are not mentioned in this text, but is frequently taught when this is taught with the Bhashya. These 7 disciplines are elaborated. Those of you are interested, you can see a text called Viveka, the early part of the text. The first 4 disciplines called quadrant, sadhana, chadushtaya. So, in English I would begin by saying, first stage is, you should be able to distinguish what is real and what is unreal. Real, the real should be capital letter R. The what is that which matters, that exists for all times, that is going to be relevant and important for our life all the time, and everything else. So real, nitya, anitya, vastu, viveka. Nitya means that which lasts for all times, is relevant and important for everyone, everywhere. Anitya means everything else. Now we do have this practice of discerning wisdom. A child may think a candy or a toy is all that matters. That is nitya for him, the everlasting. But as we grow, it is again dismissed to be of not much significance. So even at the physical level, as we grow older and older and more refined, this real, non-real discerning goes on. It happens to everyone. In fact, an ideal education is essentially meant to drive home this wisdom. I mean, how to distinguish the more important, the more relevant values from everything else. That is the real purpose of an ideal education system. The second discipline is the ability to renounce or to disregard what we normally consider to be irrelevant or unreal, and focus on what is real. It doesn't mean that we should neglect everyday duties and responsibilities, not at all. Vedanta is not a life-negating, a world-negating asceticism. Vedanta is a very, very realistic philosophy. Shankaracharya's Advaita is highly misunderstood to be a system that focuses on monasticism exclusively, something that is world-negating and life-negating, not at all. It is, one of its important components is a very refined kind of realism. So it is a synthesis of the highest realism and the highest idealism. I can quote many things from Shankaracharya's own books. He says, so long as you have not experienced the absolute spiritual truth, so long as you have not reached the highest level of spiritual enlightenment, you should look upon this world as if it is real. Do your duty and perform your responsibility as if they are very important. Just as a dreamer looks upon dream objects as the only reality. He looks upon dream objects as dream objects only when he returns to waking state. So, Brahmatma vijnana sarva loka vyavaharanam sattitu buddhi yada swapnadrishtasya prag prabodha. This is a quotation. I am giving the quotation to do justice to the great teacher from whom we got all these ideas, not our own conjectures. So he says, Advaita is so realistic. This Ananda Mimamsa, which comes earlier, and especially this discussion, Bhrigu's dialogue with his father is so important. And it has got a very practical, very empirical value in our everyday life. Just imagine how comfortable it will be mentally. Well, to dismiss all these problems and belonging to a realm of changes or changeability and focus on the real. At the same time, do your best to solve your problems. Do your duties and responsibilities with full focus and concentration. Still remaining without being shocked, without being devastated by the problems of miracle life. So we'll continue the discussion tomorrow. Now we can have interaction.
Very, very interesting subject matter and very nicely presented. I like that Ananda, what you mentioned about that Vyavaharik Satya is also supported by many of the scientists of the sleep scientists. What they mentioned about it, and how important it is, and how the whole animal kingdom goes through that cycle of the sushupti.
In fact, that's why upon one great, very unjustified accusation against Advaita is it is some kind of an ultra-monastic, life-negating, world-negating asceticism. It's totally unjustified. That means Shankara philosophy is a wonderful synthesis of the highest, most exalted kind of realism and an equally exalted kind of idealism. The problem, I tell you, unfortunately, all these are written in Sanskrit language. For example, he himself says, just I quoted just now, Brahmatma vijnana sarva loka vyavaharanam sattitu buddhi. People don't read these things. And they say Shankara said everyone should become a monk. Absolute rubbish.
Right.
That's a tragedy of it. He says every person, before he realizes this, even after realization also, you find Sri Ramakrishna never stopped working. He worked till the end of his lifetime. Shankaracharya also worked so much. According to many historians, if you judge a human being, his total lifespan and the amount of work he did, Shankara ranks first. 32 years, the most profound philosophical books written in Indian Oriental philosophy, the most exquisite devotion poetry ever written in Sanskrit, which none of the devotional philosophers could ever write 4 lines comparable to what Shankara wrote, 65 poems. 65 poems. And walking all over India's subcontinent, not today's India. At that time, India included Gandhara, Afghanistan, Burma also, 4 times. And installing all the temples and founding 10 monastic orders. Ignatius Loyola founded only the Jesuit order. Shankara 10 monastic orders. We all belong to one of the 10. And founding 4 monasteries in 4 different corners of India. And all within 32 years. And again, he was debating all the time. So, Gita we won't be reading today if you had not written a commentary. It was unknown before him. So Upanishads, Vedas never had a philosophy as understood later before Shankara. So the point is, he himself worked harder than anybody else. And they say, Shankara said you should not work. It's just like Henry Ford says, no, you should not start an industry. Can we believe that? He was the greatest icons of modern industry. Shankara. So I'm just giving an example how ridiculous it is the way Shankaracharya is misunderstood in modern times. Swamiji refers to some of these misconceptions. Okay.
So, is samadhi is after the anandam, or does it come after, or is it the same?
Yeah, Ananda is the kind of experience that one feels during samadhi, and an echo of that experience is experience in Sushupti, but deep sleep, but that experience is without awareness. See, when we go through an experience with awareness, then only it will benefit us. Then only we will recognize that experience to be that experience. Without being aware of it, if we go through some experience, it doesn't really matter much to us.
So samadhi is with full awareness.
Samadhi is experience of non-duality, total absence and transcending of duality with full awareness. So, whenever these questions are put, I give this example. Say you can go to New York in two different ways. Somebody can put you in a box, you are unconscious, and take you to New York and you come back in the same box. You can say you have gone to New York, but it doesn't matter. But there is another way of going there. You have work to do there, you have a business to do there. So you book a ticket, you take a flight, you go there, finish your business, coming back. That is like samadhi. So after samadhi, there is a spiritual transformation that happens to every experience.
Swamiji, can you clarify again why it's called non-direct and not direct or indirect experience?
Or indirect,
Sorry, can you repeat?
Paroksha, yeah. What he says is, in the Advaita, Pratyaksha, Aparoksha Jnanam and Paroksha Jnanam. So, Paroksha is indirect. Aparoksha is direct. Pratyaksha is direct only in the physical, empirical sense. So, that is not taken seriously. So, Paroksha means indirect. Aparoksha means non-indirect. You cannot say it is direct because you cannot experience your identity with Brahman the way we experience normal sensory things. So it is not pratyaksha, but it is not paroksha. It is not the opposite of pratyaksha because you experience your own identity with Brahman. So it is not remote or indirect, but it is non-indirect. It's called aparoksha. So that experience is a special name given to Advaita Anubhuti. It's called non-indirect aparoksha. Then paroksha jnanam can be used when you read books, when you listen to lectures, you get an idea what it is at the intellectual level without really experiencing it. It is called paroksha jnanam, siddhanta jnanam, shastra jnanam, knowledge of the scriptures, knowledge of the dogmas, the doctrines, the ideas, the philosophical doctrines, etc. But that's not sufficient. After that you should meditate upon what you learned, and then through the nidhyasana you should ascend to the real experience. It's called aparoksha. So this maybe I shall try to make it clear. It has something very much to do with reading any book on Vedanta or Upanishad. So you find these three terms: pratyaksha, paroksha and aparoksha. Pratyaksha, aksha means eyes. Pratyaksha means something that is within the realm of our eyes and mind. What I see is pratyaksha. This chair is pratyaksha. You are pratyaksha. The Tahoe is pratyaksha. Because it's all visible for us. Now if you talk about Siberia, which you are not gone to, which you are not seen, only read in papers, it is paroksha, it means indirect. It is not as direct as seeing later. Siberia you are not seeing, it is paroksha or indirect. Now what is that which is non-indirect? That's meaning of aparoksha. Non-indirect. Why do you use the word non-indirect? You can call it direct. It is not direct. Because direct or pratyaksha could imply something that you see and connect and understand using your senses of perception and mind. Brahmajnana, knowledge of Brahman, you cannot have that kind of experience. So, at the same time, it is not remote like Siberia. It is not remote, or Scandinavia. It is not remote. It is your own nature. You understand your own identity with Brahman. So it is not indirect. So it's called non-indirect. So you find Brihadaranyaka, yes, Sakshat, Aparokshat Brahma, Yajnavalkya, the great philosopher, teaches Gargi. Anyway, we will come to that tomorrow. We have a discussion on that subject related to this. Okay. Yeah.
Well, Swami, I think you asked the question, how can this experience of the Absolute relate to modern life? And I'm just thinking of a couple of examples. I've been enjoying reading that early edition of the Gospel of Ramakrishna from the Bengali. And over again, Ramakrishna keeps saying that the noumenal and the phenomenal are one. And we all know that place where he said that a great change had come over him. And he began to see Brahman in everything, in a cat that was walking into the temple, and excrement. I mean, that's carrying it far, but he didn't see anything else but Brahman. And so, of course, that's the essence of what we're teaching, or we learning. And then I also thought of William James, who stressed when one went through a conversion, this would have an effect on the world. It would have an effect on those around us, and that the changeless can have an impact on the changeable. And so it just, all of these teachings seem to be so close. And let's see, there's one other, and then I thought of that opening line of the Isha Upanishad, which never used to mean so much to me, but it says, everything is covered by the Lord. So everything, that means the whole empirical world, us, animals, creatures, everything is covered by the Lord. And then we're all trying to wake up to just glimpse that in some way. So it's kind of wonderful.
Now what you said is precisely the conclusion of this dialogue which we are going to tomorrow. Anyway, you have, but I will try to explain. The point is, in our spiritual journey, at the beginning we realize, like Bhrigu did, this matter, the material world is only thing. The mental, the physical and intellectual, nothing beyond that. At that stage, we make an inquiry into something beyond and transcends all this. And then we realize that Brahman is only absolute reality, and then this empirical world is really only relative. Now this is at the philosophical level. When you get fully established in that experience, then when you look back, then you realize the annam, the matter, the body, the physical, the intellectual, all these are actually non-distinct. They are really non-distinct, non-different from Brahman. But that is at the experience level. So that's why at the last stage in the life of Swami Tattwamayananda, who came to San Francisco, the Shanti Asrama, when he passed away, he asked his disciples to come to him, and he asked them to repeat one statement, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Satyam. That means Brahman is real, the world also is real. What Vedanta tells you is, this world as we see and experience before this enlightenment, before this realization of the absolute truth, this world that we normally interpret in terms of names and forms and problems and worries and social security and insurance, job security, all these problems, all these are really relative, not absolutely real. But after you go and reach, but there is something beyond all this, that Brahman is only reality. After that, when you get fully established in that, then when you look back, then you understand, oh, all these things are not essentially different. But that is only the conclusion. So there is only philosophical conclusion precedes spiritual experience. At the philosophical level, the highest stage is Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. This world is Mithya, the relative, the non-absolute, the changing, and Brahman is only unchanging, the absolute. That is at the philosophical level. When it becomes an experience, then the so-called world that I saw earlier in terms of names and forms, the world of plurality and duality, actually beyond and devoid of names and forms, it is not different from Brahman itself. That is the conclusion of Shankaracharya's commentary on the Chatursutra, the 4 sutras of Brahma Sutra. That is what he says. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya is something that you should learn and convince and get established in it. When it becomes an experience, Brahma Satyam Jagat Satyam. Yeah.
And there's also that wonderful statement of William Blake's, that we often go back to, where he said, when the doors of perception are cleansed, man shall see everything as it is, really is, infinite. So it's our perception, isn't it, that has to be changed.
Yeah.
Because the infinite is here, and we are that, aren't we? I mean, we are that.
Very often poets and novelists and creative writers get a glimpse of this.
No.
But we should not mistake that glimpse to be their experience. It is only an intellectual vision they get. So if you read Dostoevsky's Grand Inquisitor, if you read many of the well-known writings of the Shakespeare or many of the classical writers, you find a glimpse of this. Yeah, intellectuals, creative writers, they get a glimpse, But Vedanta makes a clear distinction that glimpse becomes a reality when later on you practice these disciplines and then look back at that, then becomes so obvious. It's just like, somebody who has done a lot of prayers and meditation, if he reads, or if she reads let us say, the Sermon on the Mount, he may read more meaning into it. But a poet or a creative writer who may not have gone through this inner spiritual practices, meditation, prayers, for him also it could appear to be a very grand, appealing idea, but Vedanta makes a distinction between these two. I tell you one interesting thing. One of our very famous Swamis was a host when Dr. Radhakrishnan used to be sitting. Dr. Radhakrishnan, Indian philosopher, Dr. Radhakrishnan. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Radhakrishnan was a great philosopher, was the President of India. And he, after Vivekananda, it was Dr. Radhakrishnan who introduced Indian thought to Western world at academic level. So he used to make one point, Swamiji, I am only a professor, but I can speak only as a professor. So in Vedanta, this distinction is very clearly laid down. One can be impressed by a great grand idea, but an intellectual concept should not be mistaken to be an inner experience. A Swami like Swami Apurvananda, who could not read the Sanskrit Upanishads or anything, That Swami was one day listening to a Pandit's exposition of a verse from Kathopanishad. He had not read these books actually. Adbhudananda, I'm sorry. His name is Swami Adbhudananda.
He couldn't write his name.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I misread that. Swami Adbhudananda. Adbhuta means a great wonder. So when the Pandit was explaining this, and Swami is also joined explaining this, it is true. It is certainly that way. Now, at what level did he speak those words? Yes, it is true. That's what it is. So, but as we practice these 7 disciplines, the line of demarcation disappears and you see that there is nothing to distinguish one from the other. The world and Brahman are the same. But then that's again at the experience level. Before we get that experience, we must practice discerning wisdom and all that. Vedanta has got a very laid down discipline, which I am going to discuss tomorrow. You can get in Thoreau's Walden, you find, as he walks through the forests and mountains, emptying the melted pork into the Walden pond. You find, and he identifies himself with the glorious, sublime beauty of nature, trees and valleys and mountains, moving from one place to another place. You find him being absorbed in the glory of nature. So you find in his words a glimpse of the infinite, the transcendental, that which defines the limitations of time and space. So you get mystics with a strong sense of looking beyond empirical. They get a glimpse of this. You find this in the great artistic creations of musicians, painters, writers, because for some time they suddenly transcend the realm of the relativity. So I think, we have, and thank you for these discussions. You put forth new ideas which prompt us to enter some uncharted realms of speculation.
You probably already answered this question, but I'm thinking, as you're saying, perhaps there's already a risk in minimizing and disregarding this kind of phenomenological existence that we have in the surface's higher realization. Practically speaking, how is it possible that we don't do that? That the people we meet, places we are, the things we admire, we can harness that in the service of practice.
When we get familiar with these ideas, slowly these ideas we begin to influence the way we think. They begin to influence our mind. That's why we are able to sit and enjoy reading and listening to these ideas. Because the mind has evolved to such an extent that you feel at home in the world of these ideas. There is no entertainment here. There is absolutely no role for senses, for external enjoyment. Reading and listening to these ideas. Actually, we are connecting ourselves with the ancient heritage. So this is possible because our mind is actually evolving. Otherwise, you won't be able to withstand the terrible boredom of listening to Vedanta. There is absolutely no entertainment, nothing that is eye-catching, nothing that is sensational. What do you say, Professor?
Yes. Right.
Even the ability to read these great words. So I can read Walden and practically forget everything else, because he takes you along a different journey. But a journey he takes you to somewhere beyond this world of the senses and everyday problems and all these things. So you can find this happening in the case of great writers. So when we read this, we are feeding our mind with good samskaras, good impressions. Just like body becomes healthy when we give it good food, so mind also becomes spiritually healthy and sensitive when you give good food, mental food to the mind.
but
And I hear-
I don't know.
Please.
I was reading that book, it's called, I probably can't pronounce it right, Yoga Vasishtha
Oh, yeah,
Sara.
yeah.
It was just translated, I think, by Swami Tattwamayananda, the one in
Yeah,
Hollywood.
yeah.
But it was just so helpful because he was saying, sort of along with what you were asking Kenny, but Ken, be aware of truth at all times. Don't sever the one with thoughts like, I am different. When Brahman is realized as the all-pervading, undivided reality, then only this vast universe is perceived as the supreme self alone. And he says just to keep practicing that everything, is Brahman, being aware of that kind of contemplation as you're fully engaged, in the world, that I could just keep being conscious, you are Brahman, we are, no matter what we're doing. Anyway.
Yeah, Yoga Vasishtha approaches Vedanta from the standpoint of the highest conclusion. Yeah, these books, Yoga Vasishtha and Ashtavakra Samhita and Adhyatma Ramayana, these three books, they approach the Vedantic philosophy, like Ramana Maharshi also, from the highest conclusion, the last word. So that's what is significant. There is another translation, Swami Venkateshananda, which is a very, very authentic translation. Swami Venkateshananda, you find. It's very authentic. Because Swami, I think he was in the Divine Life Society, but I'm not sure anyway. So the Yoga Vasishtha is a very huge book.
Yes.
So what we normally translate these days is a smaller version, which is a very concise book, a very important book. But we should remember it is the last word, the conclusion of in the Shankaracharya's books you find it is also a huge structure, but he has arranged an elevator, a ladder for you to climb from the bottom level to the terrace. Yoga Vasishtha, it is a proclamation to the top of the terrace. But in Shankaracharya's books you find, he has written the basic fundamental rituals, the mantras that we use for puja, that is what Shankara's work. And then what you should recite when you go to a temple or any church or any place of worship, that also you find. And the highest conclusion also. It is like a huge ship where everyone can travel, including you can take your car, your bicycles, and you can load and also everything. That's a huge ship. Okay.
In the moment when our thoughts are disturbing and our minds are roiled, let's say when we're about to slip into our beds and we can barely sleep, let alone access deep sleep, what are your suggestions as to how we can transition into
Can
sort
you
of calm
repeat?
state of
I
mind?
couldn't catch the early part. Can you repeat once more?
Well, I've had this experience myself, just being in this place that I'm not used to, having an excruciatingly difficult time sleeping, and hearing you talk about deep sleep.
Deep
So,
Yeah.
my mind is in turmoil.
Yeah.
I can have dreams that are nightmarish.
Yeah.
So when I'm conscious, when I'm awake, and how do I employ some way, some wakefulness to calm my mind and have more access to deeper state to be?
Yeah. One way, the simple method is, all that causes turmoils or problems should be dismissed as part of the natural part of life as a whole. If you look at the life of people around everywhere, there is nobody in the world, there has been nobody in the world, but a complete, 100% a succession of unbroken happiness and enjoyment. It's impossible. So once we realize this, then we come to the understanding, I am not an exception. then there is something beyond body, mind, intellect, because it is at the level of body and mind, intellect and worldly experiences that we face turmoils and problems. So once we dismiss them as part of the changing phenomena, and then we also realize that pain and pleasure both are equally unavoidable, invariable components in life. You cannot have one side of the coin without the other side. You can't have a coin with only one side. So life is naturally a continuous flow of good and bad, happiness and unhappiness. We forget this. That's why we face problems. We know intellectually. That's why intellectual understanding may not always help us. That's because mostly people live at mental level. We don't live at the intellectual level. Intellectual understanding, intellectual engagement can be helpful, but still, at the end of the day, it is the mind that tells us what to do and what not to do. That's the main problem. And so how to connect the intellect with the mind, how to help the mind, how to make the good ideas we have in our intellect be helpful to the mind, so that we should constantly think of these great ideas at a mental level. Then it will slowly come down to the mental level. Otherwise, we may read wonderful books, but then those ideas are left behind and then we start worrying. Because we look upon mind and intellect as two important compartments. So, going on thinking of these higher ideas will slowly strengthen the mind, and that way there is a bridge that you create, you construct, connecting the mind and intellect. So that's a very important thing. Frequently, intellectual ideas may not always help people. When people are facing a problem, they may read poetry. When poetry, then that's only a temporary postponement of the problem. And after the book is left behind, again we come back to the mind. So how to make what we read in the book a healthy tool that helps us at the mental level. So we have to think of that. So there's a contemplation, thinking, constant pondering over these great ideas will create healthy samskaras. Now samskaras is very interesting. I think it doesn't have any appropriate or English equivalent. Samskara is a term used in modern psychology these days very often. Samskara, it's a tendency, aptitudes, the after effect of ideas and actions, you can say. So, intellectual ideas that are highly elevating should be converted into healthy samskaras. Then they help your mind. Otherwise, mind is not very much helped by the good ideas that you gather intellectually. So that should be brought down to mental level. Constant thinking will help us to convert highly elevating ideas that we get from books into samskaras. And samskaras are what actually constitute the mind.
I'm just forgetting that, based on what you just said, that it's possible for me, before I get into bed, I can consciously meditate and articulate those ideas to myself, instead of just sliding into bed, full of these other thoughts that are just disturbing me.
I think instead of meditating, meditation is a slightly advanced process. Thinking of how these great ideas that I am impressed by, that I gather in my intellect, how I can make use of those ideas in my daily life. When you think, this is called mananam or contemplation. When you think like this, then those ideas become part of the mental makeup. Otherwise, we want to run away from our own mind. And for that, people read books. It is not very different from taking alcohol or drugs to run away from our own mind. That's only a temporary postponement of the problem, not a solution to the problem. The problem can be solved only when these great ideas that we gather in our intellect are brought down to the mental level by generating appropriate samskaras. So, and this process of converting ideas into samskaras can be done by constant thinking and contemplation.
Swami, several of us here use meditation in the way that we've been talking.
Yeah.
Taking a short passage that we've memorized, we can take one like in the Bible, God is light,
Yeah.
in whom is no darkness at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Or the beginning of the 23rd Psalm,
Yeah.
the Lord is my shepherd,
Yeah.
I shall not want. And sometimes I'll substitute words, the Lord is my protector,
Yeah.
I shall not want. And as Swamiji would say, saying over and over, I am He, I am He, I am that, slowly. And that helps to, I think, quiet these asuras or whoever's, trying to upset us at night. And so I find it very helpful just to take a hymn or a few lines and say them quietly, slowly to myself.
Yeah.
And I start to believe them as I say them. It's hard sometimes because we have this inspired passage and then all this turbulence that is roaring inside us. But the power in these great statements by Shankara, Ramakrishna, there's that great one in the Gita, the unreal never is, and the real never ceases to be. I mean, just these very short ones that we can memorize.
Yeah.
And they're comforting in the night when things seem dark and sort of overwhelming. Our daytime experience comes back and kind of tries to...
Memorization is a great advantage. You can readily bring back those ideas to your mind and then think, then thought will follow.
Yes.
So, that's true. These are different ways. That way, you are generating healthy samskaras.
Yes.
And once healthy samskaras are generated, they start influencing the mind. And they have a healing effect on the mental. So can we...
Just one.
Yeah,
So
please,
all this
please.
same thing I was saying is with prayer, it will help.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, bhakti.
Yeah.
Will this aid this whole process?
Yeah. Now bhakti is the easiest tool, because there are people belong to different religious and devotional traditions. Some are more interested in intellectual analysis, some interested in meditation, some interested in bhakti or devotion. Devotional approach is the easiest, because in devotional approach we are actually sublimating our normal human tendencies and relationship into a divine level. So actually when you look upon God as your father or mother or your protector, your friend, somebody who comes to your rescue in a difficult situation, that's natural, because we all think of the need of approaching somebody to help us in times of need. So that natural human tendency is given a spiritual orientation. That is bhakti. That's more natural and that is easiest. So thank you. Now we will have the conclusion, and then tomorrow we will continue. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna.